In 1915, the Pennsylvania Railroad began the installation of these train signals on its railroad infrastructure. They aren't like your average semaphore, tri-light, Y-pattern, color light, or searchlight that you'd find anywhere else. These are the iconic position light signals. And for over a century, these wayside installations have governed the movement of hundreds of thousands of trains on dozens of different railroads in the eastern United States. Unlike normal signals, the position lights don't use color to convey signal indications. Rather, they utilize the positioning of their lights to tell the trains how to move, thus the name position light, or PL for short. This picture that I took in Wellsville on the lower Cleveland line is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The 3 amber lights stacked vertically on this signal indicates a clear, proceed at maximum authorized speed, whereas in this example in Vanport, Pennsylvania, the signal displays approach, proceed prepared to stop at the next signal ahead by displaying 3 amber lights, this time in a diagonal position. A stop indication would use the same 3 amber lights in a vertical placement. I found this image on the Railroad Signals of the US website. Now, a few months ago, back in October of 2024, I heard through the grapevine that the last remaining Pennsylvania position lights on Norfolk Southern's lower Cleveland line were doomed for replacement in the next year, and I decided that I wanted to grab some footage of them before they fell. So me and my good friend Randy Meadows of RM Productions set out to the Ohio River on Saturday, November 29th in search of these remaining archaic structures. We started out at the yard in Mingo Junction doing a little bit of sightseeing around the area. We found an ET-44 cold and dark at the fuel pad a few hundred yards away from the old Conrail fuel tower. Over at the north end, some LTEX switchers are shuffling scrap gons, former BNSF and CN units respectively. Looking into Mingo Junction from the Norfolk Southern River line, we see an SD60E way off in the distance that's used on the C54 turn between here and Conway. We'll see it in action here a little later. Just west of Mingo is Gold's Yard, the Norfolk Southern interchange with the Ohio Central Railroad. This is where NS's stinky trash train 63V terminates. The power and the consist get tied down here at the south end for the OC to pick it up and bring it to the Apex landfill south of Amsterdam. Take note of the old Pensy signal bridge here. Me and Randy had stopped here to see if the empty counterpart 62V had gone on duty yet, but it appeared the OC hadn't even brought it down, and the only thing sitting here was the loaded train. And that thing smelled rancid. The 63V has garnered a plethora of nicknames from rail fans over the years. Some examples are the Jersey Stink Train or Oscar. Others have called it disgusting, putrid, atrocious, and makes me want to vomit. This is a close-up that Randy captured on his drone of the power sitting tied down next to the train. A trio of AC-44 C6M rebuilds of varying age. After checking out Mingo Junction, we started traveling north and east up toward the lower Cleveland line. Only 10 of the Pennsylvania position lights still remain on the stretch between Yellow Creek and Rochester, and some of them are, well, closer to retirement than others. Like this one here at Midland, Pennsylvania. Its replacement is bagged up and ready to go like hot food, as it waits for the day that the maintainer comes and finally hooks it up to the rails. There's also a high car detector here. Any rail car higher than 18 feet 10 inches cannot traverse this line, likely due to the Route 7 overpass at Yellow Creek being too short for things like double stacks and auto racks. A second detector just like this can be found at Homeworth on the Bayard side, milepost RD64.2. On the other hand, the position lights at RD5 don't quite look like they have much time left either, as their replacements stand menacingly behind them. You'll notice that this part of the line does not allow for bidirectional running, and you can tell because the signals only face one way per track. It's also indicated by Rule 261 in the NS Operating Rulebook. This makes Track 2 the westbound main to Mingo Junction, and Track 1 the eastbound main to Rochester and Conway. 2 miles west of Bridgewater is Vanport, and arguably the most popular set of PLs here on the lower Cleveland line. They're so easily accessible to the railfan, and the shots here are actually quite nice. The bridge above is the I-376 overpass. Unlike the previous PLs we've seen up until this point, these guys don't have replacements yet. However, there are new bases lying adjacent to the tracks next to the relay box. Back in the state of Ohio, we find ourselves at East Liverpool. The railroad behind us curves into these signals, and due to an overhanging tree, there's a slight visibility problem, so the eastward signal is on a higher mast than its counterpart. Something I like about these old soldiers for some reason is that the lights continue to burn brightly and clearly despite their old age. And they're pretty easy to see for train crews, especially if you're looking right at them. There's another pair of these about 3 miles to our west at Jethro. However, we couldn't find a legal way to access them, so we moved on to the last one at Wellsville, milepost RD22. This one sits next to a much newer SafeTran installation with NS's signature flat-bottom backboards. We spent pretty much all day on the banks of the Ohio River shooting the last remaining PLs before they go, plus a few extra stops in the Conway area. On our way back west, though, this happened. Alright, so we're here in Wellsville, here on the Bayard, the lower Cleveland line. Oh. That's a Toronto detective. That's C54. What? Let's go! What? Shoot! Over here.
Oh, hail the magic con!
Oh my god.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 7.4. No defects. Total axle 82.
So as I was just saying, we're here in Wellsville, here on the lower Cleveland line, or the Bayard, or whatever you want to call it. We have C54 coming. We spent all day on the riverside capturing some footage of these signals before they fall. And now we started making our way back east and then heard something get track authority out of Mingo. And so our ultimate choice was to set up here. Way off in the distance, you can barely tell. But that thing right there is one of the position lights. We're here at RD22. So we got this thing coming. Presumably it's got an EMD leader of some sort, so we'll see. Gonna do a little night chasing here. Yep, some good old-fashioned nighttime train chasing. In sub-freezing temperatures. What could go wrong here? Alright, I got the camcorder set up. I have the exposure turned up pretty high. It's going to be grainy as all get out, but I'll work with it, or I'll try to at least. Spoiler alert, the increased exposure on the camcorder absolutely killed my shutter speed, dropping it under 15 frames per second. Absolutely freaking not.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man.
So that C54 or whatever's coming is in Toronto, or just cleared Toronto. Eventually we'll hear him give up his track authority to, I don't know who dispatches down here. It's either somebody in Mingo, Conway Terminal, or I doubt it'd be Cleveland East, but you know. So yeah, we'll be listening for that. is moving. We leapfrog the train to, somewhere east of Glasgow. I'm actually not quite sure where we are here. I do know, however, that track speed on this portion of the Cleveland line is 40 miles an hour, except for the piece of single track between CP Vez in Glasgow and CP Midsteel in Midland, where it drops to 10 miles an hour for some reason. And don't quote me on this next, but I think that this section of single rail is under track warrant control. I could not begin to tell you why that is. In familiar settings, we land back at Midland and the high car detector, and the PL, and the C54 has since returned to track speed. I would have gotten detector audio here, but my dumb butt decided to forget the scanner in Wellsville, so we had to go all the way back there before we went home. We'd leave the train here for the night, and I would learn a very important lesson. Never chase trains on this side at this time of year. It's too dark and too cold, and that made it too goofy for me. Especially considering that I'm not quite familiar yet with these parts, and that C54 was one of the only moving trains we saw today. Oh well. With all that said, thank you for watching, and thank you so much to each and every one of you and your continued support for my channel. It means a lot to me, it really does. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys in 2025, probably. Take it easy now.